the collective identity of a field enables or constrains innovation at an organizational level?
Collective identity constrains innovation because organizations consider themselves as a type of organization that's institutionalized in a field. So symphony orchestras are a type of organization that is institutionalized, and that's why stakeholders have specific expectations towards the organization, and that constrains the ability of the organization to offer something else that violates those expectations.
We define collective identity as a set of characteristics shared among a group of actors who have similar outputs or aims. And in our example of symphony orchestras, this is a shared mission that informs the values, beliefs, and norms across the sector.
If I had to explain what we're talking about in the paper as simple as possible, I would just say that organizations who have a particular identity, they're a kind of organization of a certain type. Being that kind of organization limits what things they can change and what things they can do because they need to be true to who they are as an organization. Some kinds of organizations can only innovate themselves out of trouble if they stop being who they are. One of the places where we kind of had to make a decision is whether to concentrate on collective identity and how much to include the organization's individual identities. We realized that actually the really interesting thing in this particularly with orchestras, is it was being an orchestra was so important in terms of constraining how they could innovate. Tradition's so important, their instruments, the way where they play, how they play, the music they play. And so to try to add in digital and try to add in social media and all these new cool things that were influencing music everywhere was really constrained by their collective identity as symphony orchestras.
Paper is really at the intersection of innovation and institutional theory. And so I think with this piece, we're bringing these two debates together.
Our paper matters for managers because it both identifies some of the constraints that they can face around innovation, helps them gives them a kind of a language to talk about it, and also suggests some ways and provides a bunch of examples, at least of how orchestras tried to get around this and when they were successful. I think there's a lot more work to be done on this. Our paper really is raising this as an area that deserves more research.
So the conversation may, for example, help demystify why external stakeholders respond differently to innovation, and consider how managers might better manage these different responses.
To develop narratives so they frame themselves as differently within the organizational field, and hence the stakeholders react differently to their innovations.
Managers need to keep a close eye on the changing needs and expectations of their stakeholders and try to innovate with those changes in mind. The interesting stories that we briefly allude to in the paper is the story of how a symphony orchestra in America managed to reach 8 million people through YouTube simply by inviting a rap artist onto the stage on a Sunday afternoon and transforming the boundaries of collective identity through innovation.